am. Yes, I've been bad. We're the dunce cap, but
Commissioner Pickering, anytime. Oh, we are not hearing you. It shows on Zoom that you're talking as in the green box, but we cannot hear you in the auditorium. One moment. Gonna try one more time. I can see, Zoom up. The problem is on our end. Of course, we tested. Can I have a test, please, Commissioner? Yep, I still see you talking on Zoom, but we cannot hear you. IT is rebooting. If we,
Commissioner, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're on. We're in.
Yay, finally. Okay. Well, hi everyone. It's now 11:32. I am not in person because I'm recovering from the flu, so didn't want to cough all over folks. So if I do get a big coughing fit, I am going to turn it over to Commissioner Goldthorpe to facilitate whatever for the remainder of the meeting. And with that, I don't have any updates at this time. Do we have any housekeeping items or questions about the agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
I do have 2 or 3 questions related to some items on the consent agenda. I think they'll be brief, but when we get a moment, I'd like to go into those when it's appropriate.
We can go over it now.
Okay. Well, then let me start with the easiest one first. Let's see. Item number 8 on the consent agenda, disposal of traffic signal surplus property. When I read the description of the property that's being declared surplus, I didn't recognize specifically what those different items were. And the plan is to give them to Computers for Kids, but it sounded like, I don't know, is this specialized traffic control equipment or is this just ordinary computer equipment? And that was my question. I just wanted to be sure I knew what it was we were giving to them, because I don't know that kids have much use for traffic signal controllers and things like that.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, great question. Normal computer stuff. We will give, which we do through our IT systems and such. When they're no longer usable, they're functional for the kids and they can use them for all sorts of different things. So it's not specifically related to traffic control information and stuff.
Okay, so
Yeah.
general purpose computer systems and such. Okay, I simply asked that because I didn't recognize any of the detailed descriptions of those. Okay, item number 6, the Western Heritage Byway Federal Lands Access Program for Swan Falls Road. I just wanted to be clear on the scope of this project. Based on part of the staff report, it sounded like it's just adding shoulders along Swan Falls Road, but I wanted to find out for sure, what is the full scope of that project? Does it go beyond just adding shoulders? Is it repaving a large section of the road? What's happening?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, yes, the majority of the work is to do shouldering, widen the road for, or shoulder the road for about 8.3 miles of that system. However, also added in that is a reconstruction of some turn lanes to make them more safer for vehicle traffic, for all user traffic, and to put in thermoplastic crossings to better highlight the areas for both pedestrians and bikes. So that's basically the intent of the program.
Okay, and when we have the federal grant amount and then our matching amount for that project, what's gonna happen if the actual bids for the work come in above those combined amounts? Do we have to make up the difference?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's, I think that's a relevant concern, because who knows with the way inflation is going, and so as far as timing goes, when is this project going to get started? I'm just trying to gauge what kind of inflation we might expect between now and then.
You know, it's, I think, as we shared about a week or 2 weeks ago, I think the real concern that we have is inflation rates across the board. We have seen, though, prices coming down on some of the major projects. We're seeing bids that come in between 10 and 12% below. But I think one of the concerns that we're working on is deflation operations, which I've had some great discussions with multiple commercial developers, realtors, that sort of thing, and that's what they're concerned about now. On this, I don't think, and we should know by the end of 23, we talked about that reflection point is what the feds are going to do or not do. We really won't have a good idea on that till about, I think, the first month or two of 24 and such. But our best guess at this point is that this is really probably good to go and such. And with the type of work that we're doing and we're seeing in our current bids, I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, and then really my next thing isn't so much a question as a comment. Items 3 and 4 on the consent agenda relate to some bid awards, Lake Hazel Road and Maple Grove, and then the, well, let's see, actually, I guess it's number 5, the Amity Road and Maple Grove Roundabout. One thing that I have noticed, and I've heard comments from a number of people on this, is that, and 10 Mile Road is a good example. We've extended 10 Mile Road out south of Overland Road and so on, and we've built it according to our, complete streets policy with curb, gutter, multi-use pathways, and so on. And so we've got this 5-lane road, curb and gutter, and multi-use pathways extending out for a considerable distance in areas that have no development at all. It's just farm fields, empty lots, what have you. And I look at something like that and I ask myself, is it really prudent to be designing that level of a facility in a place like that where, who knows, it may be 5, 10, 20 years before you get significant development in there to where those facilities are useful. And this is kind of a comment for the whole commission, but I think for our leadership here as well, especially in view of, I'm thinking in terms of the Lake Hazel Road extension that's being contemplated, extending Lake Hazel Road out to I-84 through what's going to be an industrial district. And I wonder if we need to think seriously about our complete streets policy, because if we're going to be building several miles of a new roadway through what is going to be an industrial district, where if you go through industrial districts, pedestrian volumes are almost nil, bicyclists very few. It seems to me we ought to have a policy for rural road construction where we're not building this Cadillac version of a highway, but go back to more of a rural design with swales and, you know, not bother with curbs in many of these sections where these sorts of things may simply never be needed, like in an industrial zone. So I want to, and I'm suggesting this to the commission, that I think there are times and places where we ought to say that our complete streets policy doesn't make sense in many places, and we need to adjust that policy, or at least have, you know, conditions under which, yeah, we see it doesn't make sense. Let's go to a less costly and more appropriate road section design for those areas. Anyway, I just wanted to make that comment. I think it's relevant, something worth thinking.
Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney, do you have any other questions on the consent agenda,
I do not.
or was that it? Okay.
That was it.
Director Wong, did you have something to add before I turn over to Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Madam President, thank you. Commissioner McKinney, again, for majority of your comments, that as you said, commission when it comes on the policy, but I'm glad that you pointed to item number 3 based on your previous discussion, because that project is a fairly large project, but it came in 12.9% below the budget.
Right.
So again, that's why we're comfortable today on some of these longer range projects, and it was below even the engineer's estimate.
Right. I noticed that on actually a couple of them.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I agree with what the director says about this being future decisions for the commission, but I would assure Commissioner McKinney that the 2 projects that are here that he's worried about, there is plenty of development to support this out there right now. And on the Lake Hazel extension, we don't even anticipate having to pay for that. And you know, that's coming from developers and development, and that's what's been discussed even through the city of Boise for years and years. And that some kind to a STARS agreement would be developed to reimburse those who pay for it, and that would only beginning anyway be 2 lanes, not 5. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Commissioner Goldthorpe. All right, if there's no other questions about the agenda, Director, over to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, good morning. I'd like to start off with a couple pictures and start. If you could bring the first one up, Stacy, please. Commissioners, I want to thank you all again for continuing to support our team in the outstanding charity work that we do and the outreach that we do across the board. You can see a lot of very smiling, happy faces, because last Saturday, as I shared with all of you, we raised an amazing amount of money for the Faces of Hope, a very critical organization here in Boise. We will be presenting the formal check to the group in a couple weeks from now with all of you and such. But I just wanted to, again, thank you all for supporting this, and of course, thank our tremendous team who put this together, because this is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. So $224,000 going to a great cause and a great organization. Stacy, if you could bring up the next 2 pictures. Okay, the first one here. I had the opportunity with Ryan Head this morning to go out and view the pilot project for micro trenching from the Castle Group, and I wanted to share this picture. That's the trench. It is all of maybe 1.5 inches wide and maybe 1/2 inch deep, going through there for their fiber operations. We were incredibly impressed with the ease and the least amount of impact into the infrastructure when it came down to this new technology that we're piloting through the winter in certain sections of Boise. Next picture, please. Commissioners, this is the final when it's all said and done. After the fiber is put into that 1/2 inch depth, it is covered with this very special tape. It is, I'm told by all the folks from Castle that it withstands everything across the board very nicely. As you can see, that if there is any type of issue of maintenance that has to dig across the road, the tape is pulled up. The company can do a quick bypass to ensure connectivity continues to those folks that might have been interrupted. The maintenance is done. and the tape, the new surface is put in and the tape is replaced. It is really that easy across the board. Now, again, we are waiting for winter to see how this is sustained through Idaho winters and stuff, but I must share with you, initial walkthrough, initial speakings with their team, and looking at how easily and strategically they're doing this, I was impressed on operations. So more to come, and such, and we'll keep you posted on next steps on that. A couple meetings, and then I'll get into the meat of today's director's report. First off, 21 September, commissioners, if you'd like to put that on your calendar, we'll put it on yours also. We have the Chip Seal Victory Celebration over at Cloverdale starting at noon. You are all invited. The all staff is 26 September. At Adams, you are all invited. On 3 October, we're hosting the annual team member appreciation breakfast. At Adams, you're all invited to join us in cooking and such across the board, but we'll make sure these are on your calendars. Commissioners, what I'd like to do for the rest of my director's report is I've asked Jennifer to give you all an update on where we are, where we're going with both USTIC and Apple. I think we have some pretty exciting news. There's a lot of things that have gone forward. So I'm going to ask you to come off the dais. She'll walk you through the displays out here, but it's a very exciting time right now. So Jennifer, over to you.
Director Wong, are these sheets that we have here, are they the same as what's on the, different? Okay.
Madam President, Commissioners, Jennifer Behringer, Deputy Director of Maintenance. Not this slide. It's a little bit of the maintenance show today. So I'm excited to be in front of you today to give you an update on where we are on Apple, USTIC, and maintenance yards. No, I don't have a slide to present. It's just a handout. Yeah, so you've got the handouts in front of you, but I'm just going to walk through really briefly where we are on development of the sites. Over the last several months, we've been working on the design, and most recently we put McIlvaine on as our contractor to watch over the construction and everything. McIlvaine gave us an estimate of probable cost and a schedule, which I'll talk to in a few slides. For Apple Yard, we have had our pre-application meeting with the city, and we'll be in design review in November, and that's because they have a deadline for the documents to be the first week of October. That's the earliest we'll be able to get in for design review. LCA, our architect, Lombard Conrad, will be at 100% on the construction documents in May of 24, and we estimate completion of construction in August 2026. And I'll talk more about that in a few slides as well. Our original estimate of completion was going to be 2028, so that's why I'm saying we're ahead of schedule, but that's kind of pending that look ahead on the schedule. Next slide is our USTIC maintenance yard. Very similar, we got the probable cost and schedule in August, and we had our pre-application meeting at the end of August with Meridian, and we'll be in design review with Meridian in October. So we'll be getting the documents into Meridian next week. On the site, Meridian Parks is already doing their pathway along that north border, and they are nearing completion. The pathway paving is mostly complete, and they're awaiting delivery of bridge components. So I have a TBD on there, but we're thinking it's going to be November that path will be completed. Lombard Conrad will have their 100% construction documents again in 2024, and the same timeline, August 2026 for completion. The next slide, I just kind of talk through a little bit about what we're looking at for budget. So the first option, and this is the one that McIlvaine has recommended, is that we go fast. It is the most cost-efficient way of putting these yards together. It takes into account the long lead items that they need to order now, but we'd be looking at just over 2 years for this construction, with the pre-construction phase going to it would be about 3 years, but June to July of 24 is when we'd be in pre-construction, and then the construction would happen, groundbreaking in July of 24 with a completion in 26. With that timeline, the estimate for the probable cost of construction is about 45 million for each location. These costs might adjust a little bit as some of the realities of the current market start to settle, but this is based on their best knowledge. And luckily, McIlvain is the contractor that we have on our Franklin yard, so we've got a lot of good fact finding happening with them as well. So we're pretty confident on these cost estimates. So as I said, this was if we go fast, if we can get it done as quickly as possible. They don't have any real breaks in the construction. If we delay it to try and kind of phase it out and fit our original timeline to 2028, they estimate that that'll add about 4.5 million per site to delay it. They've got other costs associated with that. Most, I think, influencing that cost is having to go through 2 more winters. And that slows things down significantly. And then we had a third course of action that we looked at, and that's constraining it to some kind of annual budget of like 10 million a year. We didn't really run through that timeline to figure out what that would look like for costs per year, because it's probably just not in the best interest of the taxpayers to just delay it and keep going forever. We'd like to get this moving so we can get those locations up and running and better serve the citizens in those areas. So we're talking with the director, talking with the executive team, talking to what we can afford in the budget. We're looking at doing the fastest and most cost-effective way and getting it done in 2026. The next slide, I just kind of lay out a slide you've seen in the past with the site phasing strategy, how the Apple and Ustick sites now kind of align with Franklin Yard, the Ustick Road widening, and the Adams location. A couple points. The Ustick Road widening is currently in design with right-of-way in 2024. Construction begins in 25, and construction is completed in 26. If you will recall, we have the development agreement with the City of Meridian for the Ustick site that ties the construction of the deceleration lane to our completion of the yard. So we're looking at accelerating the timeline on constructing the deceleration lane so that we can better suit all the commuters in that area, get the trucks off, construction trucks off of the road quicker, and it really best suits us as well. So just kind of putting a temporary deceleration lane in, and then when the construction comes through, it'll be tied in appropriately, so it's seamless. And with the timeline on the Ustick yard and Apple Street yard, we'd be looking, like I said, for groundbreaking in 2024, doing all the construction in 24 and 25, completing it in 26, commercial operations for decant and winter ops as early as 26, and then full operations in 27. And that's all I have for the handout. The other handout you have are some of the newest renderings. I just got these yesterday afternoon, so I didn't have a chance to print them on the plotters. So what you have are in addition to what's down here off the dais, but as the director said, we invite you to take a few moments, walk through the plans that we have here. I've got some building facades so you can kind of see how that looks. One thing I do want to mention that I didn't mention on the previous slides, in our pre-application meetings that we had with both of the cities, neither one had any major concerns. They did like the renderings that you see down here are what they have seen. So they were very happy with what the facades are looking like, what the fence line is looking like, those kind of areas. So there were a few things that we're tweaking. Things like where's the garbage delivery, where garbage pickup's going to be, those kinds of things. But they didn't have any major notes for us to take on, and they're happy at this point with the pre-application. So I'm confident that we'll be able to move smoothly through the cities. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
That's
Madam
so
President.
great. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that update. Commissioner McKinney.
Yes, Jennifer, just a question on the budgets and so on. I'm looking at these numbers, and how do these compare to the previous estimates that we made and what's been budgeted? Because in my mind, the numbers in my mind are quite a bit smaller than these numbers.
The numbers.
Am I wrong?
No, Commissioner McKinney. No, you're remembering correctly. Our pre-estimates were ahead of COVID, a lot of the COVID numbers, a lot of the realities of what things are costing now. So kind of our internal estimates weren't really in this ballpark as much. So this number that we got from McIlvain is higher, but we've learned that through the Franklin yard as well. As we're building that, things just cost more than what our initial estimates were.
So do you recall what was our original estimate for the Apple facility?
They were more in the line of 30.
30 million?
Mhm,
Yeah,
for each of them.
that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
And the U-Stick yard
Both,
as
yeah.
well? And what's interesting is I noticed the U-Stick yard, the number is higher here, but it's considerably smaller than the Apple yard,
Yeah,
is
the
it not?
U-Stick yard has some issues since it's close to the water and it's got a high water table. One of the big drivers with the additional cost is when we build the decant, it's got to kind of come up off the ground a little bit because of that water table. So there's just some other issues, even though the yard square yardage is less on the U-Stick yard. There are other factors based on the terrain.
Okay, so then I guess the kicker is, with these higher numbers, can our budget handle this? That's kind of my question.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, yes, please remember that half of these fees will be paid by the sale of this entire operation going forward. So again, we still believe it is a wash for the Apple yard. And I will remind the commission that again, these costs that we're sharing with you are absolutely in line with today's price structure. Who knows what'll happen, as you said earlier, 3, 4, 5 years from now, especially if we get into an issue where we are seeing deflation, where we are seeing stoppages across the board. Those prices most likely will come down. So this is our best estimate right now from McIlvain, and I would encourage all of you, if you haven't yet, drive by the Traffic Management Center, new facilities that's being built on Franklin. They're doing a tremendous job, and you can already see where buildings are going to be and such. So again, very, very exciting. But yes, we're still confident that we can do this. And then, as Jennifer said, I would invite, with the president's permission, the commission to come down and take a look at the different renderings. If you're so inclined, we do have a couple minutes before we go into the formal agenda.
Yeah, are there any other questions for Jennifer?
I'm gonna wait till after the meeting.
That's probably a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Everyone?
All right, it's now 12 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone that's in person and online. And I'll have Commissioner Goldthorpe, lead the Pledge of Allegiance in person over there. Can you guys hear me? No?
I can hear her talk. Okay. Commissioner Pickering?
Yes?
There we are. Okay.
Okay. We'll do this again. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 12 o'clock. Welcome everyone that's online and in person. And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Goldthorpe to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks all. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is to adopt the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and are action items unless otherwise noted. The consent agenda is enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on items on the consent agenda. If a commissioner or citizen would like, they may request any item be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. If we do not have any of those requests today, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. It's the presentation of the ACH team for the National Equipment Rodeo. Whoop, whoop. I don't know who's up. Oh, Jennifer, thank you.
Madam President, Commissioners, it's me again. Very excited to present to you our teams that are going forward to compete at the National Equipment Rodeo. As you may recall, back in April, we had our competition out at the fairgrounds. Fantastic job out there, just everybody setting up and the excitement, and then being able to kind of crown the winners. And now it's time for them to move on to compete at the national level. So we're very excited. The kind of skills that these guys bring to this equipment really showcases what we're able to do in our community as well. So we have our truck course team, a grader team, a grader, a skid steer, and a loader operator that we're all sending. So I'm going to bring them up and we're going to present, if you don't mind, and Madam President, with your permission, if everybody could come down to the dais and help present these awards.
Absolutely.
We'll get these to the competitors so that they can wow us.
We're so excited.
And yes.
Introduce them as the defending world champions.
Well, I was just about to say that. Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. As you may recall, last year our team that we sent to Colorado to compete did come back with the first place trophy in team points with several top 10 finishes. So defending champions, we expect nothing less this time. So if I can have Robert Henry, Chris Boatwright, Grayson Truden, and Danny Garland come forward. I know Daniel Whittel is not here.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And we'll do a team photo as well.
Looking for nothing but.
We're gonna take a quick picture if you don't
Quick
mind.
photo. Yeah, commissioners step up on the step and the competitors in front. Safety, safety, safety. Do you want to show your jackets? Either the front or the back of them? The back is pretty, yeah, show the back, that's pretty cool.
Smiles for me.
Okay, I can't tell, did everyone take the picture and we're all good then?
Yes, we're ready for item number 2.
Perfect, thanks Stacy. All right, so item number 2, it's the authorization order of condemnation for parcel 3. It's ACHD project number 320005, Franklin and Orchard. This is a public hearing, so I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing. Welcome, Mr. David Sirdar.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, David Sirdar, right-of-way supervisor for the Ada County Highway District. As said, this is a decision brief and a public hearing for a condemnation action. This is for the Orchard and Franklin pedestrian signal project. The owner of the property is Styx LLC. Construction on this project is scheduled to begin in fiscal year 24. Just wanted to note that this is a priority project for the ADA Advisory Committee. Here we see kind of the vicinity map, and we see Franklin there and Orchard. Kind of the small street that's the other just north of there is Richardson, to help orient everybody. This is the more close-up view of the site. The red is the fee acquisition and the green is the temporary construction easement. It's a relatively small fee acquisition at 237 square feet. This is the property details for your review. ACHD started the negotiation in March 20th of 2023. Due to non-responsiveness, ACHD sent 2 10-day letters to the owners, one in May and the other in June. ACHD did talk to the owners on July 13th, 2023, where the plans were discussed as well as relocation of the sign on the corner. During August, ACHD and the owner came to a resolution on the sign, and ACHD did get a commitment from the property owner that they were going to sign. As of today, no documents have been received by ACHD right away. Right away has inquired about the documents several times, and we have been promised they are forthcoming. However, project timelines require ACHD to proceed with the condemnation now to meet the project deadlines. As always, staff will continue to work towards getting the signed documents in ACHD's possession as the condemnation moves forward. As a result, it is staff recommendation that we declare the acquisition area necessary for the project as right-of-way and public use, authorize the staff to proceed with the condemnation action, and execute the order of condemnation for the acquisition area. I will remain standing.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions for staff?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
Dave, let me just kind of ask, I've got 2 questions. First question is, it looks like this project will not actually affect the location of the curbs and the size and scope of the parking area on that adjacent property. Is that correct?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, that is correct.
But it will require moving a sign. Okay.
Correct.
And then my usual question, what kind of a dollar amount are we talking about in
Sure.
cost for this?
This actually includes 2 kind of different costs because we get the sign costs separately, but the costs are approximately $33,000, and that includes one cost for the sign and also cost for the property.
Okay, so for the property and the sign, the property owner has been offered what did you say, 33,000?
It's 32,000.
32,000. Okay, all right. That's all my questions.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Dave. Is the property owner present? Stacy?
We do not have the property owner, nor has anyone signed up to testify.
Okay. Well, is there anyone online that would like to testify? I don't think so. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners,
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe,
I would make a motion that we authorize the order of condemnation for parcel 3, Styx ACHD project 320005 at Franklin and Orchard.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dave, for your work on this. All right. Moving on to public communications. Is there any member of the public that would wish to address the commission at this time?
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify? I think we're good today.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, then with that, meeting is adjourned. We will swiftly move into our post-commission work session, with our first item being the 2025 CIP updates. It's a visioning session. Welcome, Edison.
Commission.
By the way, before you get started, Edison, Commissioner Hanson, since he can't join, he did tell me that he's really excited about this particular item, is really pleased with it so far. So hopefully that'll jumpstart you on a good note.
Thank you, Commissioner, Madam President, and staff is pretty excited to be here today. For the record, my name is Edison Bautista, ACHD Senior Transportation Planner. And for today's meeting, staff in Kittleson, the project consultant, joining us today for this joint presentation. Would like to present an update on the 2025 Capital Improvement Plan Capital Improvement Plan update, as well as conduct a visioning session with the Commission. From Kittleson, joining us today, we have Sonia DeLayden and Mark Heisinger, who will be presenting a few slides later through this presentation. ACHD is leading this effort with the support of Kittleson and Clark Wardle. Staff recognize the importance of the Capital Improvement Plan and the impact fee update, and we want to ensure that it continues to follow national and regional best practices, as well as to continue to meet the requirements of the Idaho Code. Consistent with a previous update, we will continue to work closely with our partner agencies and our advisory committees and the development community. As part of today's presentation, our consultant Kittleson will provide a formal introduction to the Commission regarding their organization, and then we will go over the purpose of the traffic impact fee and the capital improvement plan, as well as the work done so far, our current progress, and finally we will conclude the presentation with a visioning session where we'll have a chance to hear from the Commission, as well present the findings so far and our next steps. And with this, I will give the time to our consultant for today.
For the record, Mark Heisinger. I work with Kittleson Associates. We're a transportation engineering and planning consultant. Thank you for having us here today. We're very excited to kick off this project with ACHD. So I'd like to start off this presentation just by introducing the consultant team to the Commission. I know some of you are familiar with Kittleson. We've worked with ACHD before, but some of you might not be familiar. So we want to just introduce ourselves to give a little context. So Kittleson, there are kind of two things I wanted to highlight about Kittleson. One is that we've been in the Treasure Valley for over 20 years. And we have over 20 years of local experience working with ACHD and other agencies in the Valley, including work on CIPs and impact fees with other agencies in Idaho. So we have a familiarity with how ACHD operates and an understanding of how CIPs and impact fees are affected by Idaho code. In addition, I wanted to highlight that we have over 20 offices nationwide. So our firm as a whole has a lot of experience just working on long-range planning, CIP, and impact fee related projects all over the nation. So we'll be tapping into this experience as we do a dive into our best practices review and look for examples of how other agencies do similar work. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that we are teamed with Clark Wardle, a law firm here in the Treasure Valley on this project, and they will provide legal review for any questions that arise regarding CIP and impact fee related requirements in the Idaho Code. They have a great understanding of how the legal component, as well as anyone else in the Valley, and they were recommended specifically by ACHD staff to work on this project. So we're very excited to have them on board. Next slide. Oh, the clicker works. All right. Next, I wanted to just highlight at a very high level the purpose of traffic impact fees and CIPs, especially within the context of Ada County Highway District. So impact fees, from a very high level, are a source of funding for system improvements that are needed to address growth. They're collected for development based on land use type and are used to mitigate the effects that development will have on the roadway system, really at a regional level. So it allows for new growth to fund the cost of facilities needed to accommodate that growth. The fees are calculated and based on a couple different items, but mainly the amount of growth assumed, the cost and timing of projects identified in the CIP, as well as requirements associated with the Idaho Code. And the specific section of the code related to impact fees and CIPs, is we show that kind of that top bullet, Idaho Development Impact Fee Act, Idaho Code 67, Chapter 82. So we'll be referring to that a lot just kind of throughout this project. So the other item I wanted to highlight, the capital improvements plan and how that relates to the traffic impact fees. So a capital improvement plan is required by Idaho Code if an agency would like to collect traffic impact fees. So if ACHD would like to collect impact fees, they need to have a CIP kind of correlated to that impact fee program. And it must be updated every 4 years as per ACHD policy. The CIP contains a list of projects needed to address regional growth and meet level of service targets over a 20-year horizon. Historically, the projects within the ACHD CIP have consisted of system improvements such as roadway widenings and intersection improvement projects, so things like traffic signals and roundabouts. And the project list also includes a fairly detailed description for each project, as well as a cost for each project. The CIP is then used in conjunction with other ACHD planning documents to identify projects each year to include in the integrated 5-year work program. So also wanted to highlight that it's a tool for long-range planning in that regard. And then the other item I wanted to highlight is that the Idaho Code specifies a lot of additional requirements that should be followed just in the CIP and impact fee development, including items like what projects or what part of projects may be impact fee eligible. There's a lot of guidelines to follow, some of which are open to interpretation. So as we go through this update, we'll be working closely with Clark Wardle, as well as ACHD legal staff on guidance regarding interpretation of the Idaho Code. So next, I wanted to highlight the process and kind of general project schedule that we'll be following for the 2025 traffic impact fee and CIP update. So this graphic up here shows just at a very high level the process and schedule that we'll be following. And I wanted to start off explaining this by highlighting how this differs from previous updates that ACHD has done. So previously, the process has started very generally kind of at that future needs analysis. You can see under 2024 future needs analysis, and that really includes analysis of future needs as well as project identification, and then rolling that into the traffic impact fee program. This round, we're adding a series of visioning sessions with ACHD staff, with the Capital Investment Citizens Advisory Committee, which is that CICAC acronym that you can see on the graphic, as well as a visioning session with ACHD staff. The feedback that we hear during these sessions will inform the areas that we focus on during a national best practices review. And that review will really include a review of how other agencies across the nation develop and implement CIP and TIF programs, an assessment of feasibility due to just schedule constraints and other resources that would be required of ACHD, as well as a review through the lens of the Idaho Code. After the best practices review, we'll return to the commission with our findings and recommendations and look for your direction on the 2025 CIP and traffic impact fee update process. Based on that outcome, we may find that it validates ACHD current processes. We also might return with recommendations for potential changes to the CIP and impact fee process. Some of these changes may be possible to implement in the near term, so might be able to roll it into the 2025 update, while others might be long-term changes to implement into future updates, really just based on feasibility. From there, we'll start to work on the actual CIP and traffic impact fee update. And the specifics of that update will depend on the results of our review, as well as the direction that we receive from the commission. But generally, it'll include some type of future needs analysis, as well as project identification, and then rolling those into the CIP and impact fee documents. We've identified a couple more touch points with the advisory committee as well as the commission, and we've identified that on this graphic. But also wanted to point out that there will be additional opportunities to touch base with the commission and the advisory committee and receive your input throughout the process. So that's it for my part of the presentation, and I'll pass it on to my colleague Sonia to discuss the visioning sessions.
Hi, good afternoon, Commission. Sonia DeLeiden from Kittleson and Associates for the record. Get this to work. Oh, yes, and I'll just finish for Mark that right now in this process, you can see we're at the very beginning doing these initial visioning sessions with the Commission. So what have we done so far in the process? The visioning session we're doing with you today is actually the culmination of 3 total visioning sessions we're going to be doing as part of this initial phase of the project. First, we started with ACHD staff and heard from your staff the areas within the CIP and TIF process that they feel are working today, and the areas which they feel could warrant further national best practice review. From there, we took those to your advisory committee and heard from the citizen representatives representing your local agencies, from them and the development community, what they would like to see and areas of concern they have for potential future updates. And then finally, we're coming to you to hear from you as well. One thing before we get into the specifics that I would like to add, there's been 2 key themes that have come out through the previous 2 visioning sessions so far. The first being that any best practice that we move forward, the desire from staff and the advisory committee was to make sure we're focusing on proven best practices, those that have actually been implemented and used by other agencies. We can talk a lot about ongoing research that's happening, but they would really like us to focus on efforts that have been proven as to be effective by other agencies. And then just highlighting again, as Mark said, the other overarching guidance has been anything we do to move forward with potential changes to the current process, of course, needs to be in alignment with the current Idaho Development Impact Fee Act. We do need to legally follow the guidance and standards that are in that. But what have we heard from those 2 groups of visioning before we've come to you today? So the first topic that those 2 groups have inputted for that they would like to see inventory of best practices is the concept of service areas. Some of you might remember that in previous iterations, ACHD's traffic impact fee did have a multiple service area model where the county was broken down into service areas and they had different traffic impact fees per service area. More recently, the district has gone to a single service area model. The previous guidance has been to look into that nationally to see if there's any guidance and direction that might help inform how we move forward with this process related to service areas.
I have a question, Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
The question is, when you say that there's been direction to go one way or the other, has that been given with any prejudice or?
So President Pickering and Commissioner Goldthorpe, I will say there hasn't been direction to go one way or the other. There's been input for us to study what are the pros and cons of a single service area versus a multiple service area.
Thank you.
Because we know there's pros and cons to each. Thank you, good clarification. The second topic is collector roadways. Currently, the capital improvement plan and the CIP focuses on arterial level roadways. And there has been interest in evaluating the pros and cons of also including collector level roadways into the capital improvement plan and being funded by traffic impact fees. Third is expanding the range of projects that are either within the CIP itself or also traffic impact fee eligible. And those could be two different things. You could have projects in your CIP, and then there could be a subset of those projects that are actually traffic impact fee eligible. But it was a desire to investigate if there's a best practice we want to follow that expands the range of projects within your CIP. And then finally is the analysis period. Right now, those 20-year horizon needs that Mark mentioned are established looking at a peak hour analysis period. And there was interest in evaluating what best practices are out there in terms of, is a peak hour the way to go, or is there some alternative? Just for your knowledge, an alternative could be going to a peak period versus just the peak hour, or something else. So those are the 4 topics that really rose up from both staff and your advisory committee as the best practice research areas they would like us to focus on, so we could bring you back pros and cons of each in order to make a decision about how the district would like to move forward. So with that, what we're really hoping to get from you today is a discussion on, is that in alignment with what you were hoping for as well? Or is there anything that we're missing that you would like researched further and more information on? So I'll put back this slide so you have those for your reference. And then with that, President Pickering, I'll turn it over to you if you want to take questions or comments from the commission.
Thank you so much. Commissioners.
Madam President?
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, I'll take this on a little bit at a time. Concerning service areas, I've been discussing this and listening to a lot of different groups and people for a number of years now, and remain still convinced that we should have one service area instead of multiple. It's okay with me if we expand this to collector roadways, but going right into the third one, anything that we do decide to do, even to consider, I think we always ought to keep in mind whether or not the legislature is going to allow us to do any of it. Because I think if we do start changing how we want to spend impact fees drastically, we're going to wind up with more problems on our hands than I think we really want to deal with. But I'm more than happy to see us go into an analysis period instead of just an hour or two, because I mean, any of us that have sat through more than 1,500 meetings here know that we hear about, discussion about how long we keep those cables out. That's all.
Thanks, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Well, the staff, the team mentioned how they would be making sure that we were in alignment with state statute. So I think your point is well made, and the evaluation, right, will highlight any of those pieces and parts where we're not compatible. So that sounds great. Other commissioners, Commissioner McKinney or Commissioner Gold?
Yes, I do have some comments here. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Goldthorpe regarding service areas. Multiple different service areas was tried in the past, and it didn't work out well. And having a single service area, well, there are a couple of reasons why multiple service areas doesn't work. It's because there's much more development in some parts of the county than others. The result is that if impact fees are directed solely to...
Commissioner McKinney, the question that we want to understand is, do you support what the staff and the consultants are saying that they've heard? Are we okay in analyzing these 4 different topics? Not whether or not you believe in one or the other. It's just about these 4 topics and analyzing them. Is there anything else that we've missed?
Again, as far as looking at these 4 topics, I don't think considering multiple service areas is very worthwhile. I don't think talking about expanding the range of projects has much profit. There are those who want to push impact fees toward projects that really, when you analyze them, are not highly affected by development. The development primarily, the source of the impact fees, which is development, primarily affects vehicle traffic on the highways. And the desire to push impact fees into other areas strikes me as, well, it's faulty. I don't think it works. Collector roadways, I'm in agreement with what Commissioner Goldthorpe has said, basically that, yes, that ought to be considered. The analysis period, a peak hour versus a peak time. We had a member of the public comment in one of our meetings recently that we should not design for the peak hour because free-flowing traffic in off-peak hours allows people to drive too fast and have accidents. And that kind of reasoning strikes me as utter nonsense. We design for the peak hour so that we can have a tolerable level of congestion during the peak hour, and during off-peak hours, we've got free-flowing traffic because frankly, that's good for everyone, notwithstanding the fact that, yeah, people can drive fast, but that's always the case. And designing our roads to promote congestion is a bad idea. So I think looking at multiple service areas, I'm not thrilled about that. Expanding the range of projects, I'm not thrilled about that. The other two you can look at, but you would have to have a really strong proposal about something other than peak hour for me to be interested in that. So those are my thoughts.
President Pickering, could I ask a follow-up question of Commissioner McKinney?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so really appreciate your feedback. Is there anything not on this screen then, Commissioner McKinney, that you think we should be evaluating?
Think about that.
Okay.
I haven't given that specific thought, but I'll consider that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gold.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in agreement with this list, and I appreciate the work of the staff and CICAC to kind of bring these topics to attention. They're consistent with things that I've heard from partner agencies and, members of the public and et cetera. So I think this is a great list, and knowing that you're going to take this list and go compare it with proven national best practices and continue to explore these ideas, pros and cons, I think is great. So I don't have anything additional to add, but I think this is a great start.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. Yeah, I just want to applaud staff and Kittleson. Really this is just about giving us more knowledge and analysis so we can invest taxpayer and developer money more strategically. So again, this isn't about, the whole point of this is about making sure that we are making the right decisions and learning from these experts and nationally if we are doing the right thing, which I think is the least we could do. So I think these 4 topics are right on point. I've heard them throughout the time that I've been on the commission, one time or another, that each of these items we wanted to explore. So I want to give kudos to staff for maintaining this list as it's come up over the years, and making sure that we had the opportunity to look into each of these items independently, because they are big chunks of the pie that I think, again, we couldn't do it alone. So we're very excited to have consultants go alongside us and explore this. So, and like I said, Commissioner Hansen shared with me previously that he's very excited about this list as well. So we look forward to seeing further updates.
Great, thank you. So really appreciate all of the feedback. It's great to get diverse viewpoints as we see these things. I think having different viewpoints is going to lead us to a path to make the right decision. So this is great. So in terms of next steps, where are we going with this process and when will you next be engaged? So from here, we are going to identify down those key topics. We actually have in our scope up to 5. So if there is one that comes out that you want to add, we are happy to look at that one too. But we are going to research those best practices and find which ones have been proven to be effective with similar agencies to ACHD. When we look at those, again, it will be evaluating the pros and cons of each, because I don't think any one right answer is going to be perfect. It'll be pros and cons of each. We will also then work with our partner at Clark-Wardle to assess how each of those is in alignment with the current Idaho Development Impact Fee Act, which is a very important component of it. And once we have that, we are going to report back the results of those findings with staff, with the CICAC, and then also with the commission, so that we can continue our interaction and get direction from you in terms of next steps. And once we have that, we will move forward with actually updating the capital improvement plan and the traffic impact fees for 2025, including any of those new changes that result that we see are feasible to implement and that the commission would like us to move forward with. So again, really appreciate your time today and thank you for the input.
Do you have a timeline of when you would be reporting back to us?
Great question. So our goal is to be reporting back to you either end of October or early November. That is the target. This year, yes, correct, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our second item. It's the State Street 8th to 14th Street Concept Study Kickoff. Welcome, Tom. Or Aaron.
Good evening, Madam President and the Commission. My name is Aaron Williams. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner for ACHD. As requested from our previous, you guys requested that we would keep you guys in the loop and talk about whenever we're going to go out to do public engagement and really show the progress that we're doing with this project. And so this is our information briefing of State Street west of 8th all the way down to 14th. So within this PowerPoint, we're going to go over the study area. We're going to highlight the project objectives as well as discuss project programming. We will then discuss the project team and then bring up the project process and then talk about next steps. We also have our consultant from Kittleson, Nick Foster, here, and he's going to hop in as I finish my slides. So the study area that we're looking for this project is State Street west of 8th all the way down to 14th. I'd like to note that we're not touching the 8th Street intersection. It's red west of it, but we're touching the 14th Street intersection, and that's part of the project scope. I also like to note that there's a lot of development along with the YMCA along this corridor, so we're definitely keeping them in the loop and working with them closely when we come up with our concepts and our development. So the project objectives of this project for State Street is safety and function. We're trying to improve multimodal functionality, as well as improve safety for all users, especially the crossings. We're also trying to rehabilitate the pavement and correct the drainage issues along State Street. Land use, we're not trying to purchase any right-of-way, and we're trying to accommodate the current and planned land usage for State Street. We're also trying to focus on our community feedback and really engage with the surrounding property owners and the traveling public along State Street to make sure their reflection and their input is thought throughout the whole process. And then timing, we plan to complete this seamlessly following adjacent State Street improvements, also along with CCDC Westside Urban Renewal District Sunset. So last time that we talked, we highlighted that we broke up State Street into 3 phases. Phase 1, State Street 16th, 2nd through 4th. That's currently in construction and it's going pretty good. State Street 4th Street through 8th Street, it's rebid for fall 2023 and we plan to do construction 2024. Now, State Street 8th to 14th, that's this project. This is phase 3. Concept and study is to get completed in 2023, 2024. Design is to be done in 2024, 25, and construction 2025, 2026. So within this is a project that's led by ACHD. However, we're really working closely with our interagency teams. And this slide, we're highlighting who we're closely working with. We have ACHD, we have the City of Boise, we also have VRT, Valley Regional Transit, and CCDC. So we're really working all together, and we're having team meetings, and we're coming together as a team to really discuss the concepts and how we want to go about this project when it comes to finding the solution to the answer that we need. And so now I'd like to pass it off to Nick, who's going to discuss his portion of the slides.
Good afternoon, Nick Foster with Kittleson & Associates. I'm the consultant team project manager on this one. Pleased to be back in front of you all again. Just like to highlight our overall project team for this project. You know, we have a solid team based out of Boise here with experience with similar projects locally as well as in the region. But I'm also really excited for this project. It's an opportunity for us to bring in some of our folks from outside the region who have experience and expertise that I think is going to be particularly useful for this project. In particular, out of our DC office, we'll be closely supported by the two individuals shown here, Jamie Henson, who's got 20 plus years of experience working up and down the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast regions, both in the public and the private side. He really specializes in corridor studies and constrained corridors that involve multiple users, especially transit vehicles. You know, that's a key consideration in this project with VRT's vision for future transit service in the area. How do we integrate any potential changes or alternatives with VRT's vision for enhanced transit service in the future too? So he's closely engaged in this project, bringing lots of experience in that area, integrating transit into things. Also, John Krisafi, who is also in our DC office, works a lot with Jamie on these types of projects, and some of his expertise is in signal operations and micro simulation of conditions. And so he's currently leading up a team that's building a simulation model of the corridor that will really look at how well different modes interact under different conditions. And fun fact about John, he actually began his career here in Boise, worked on the original DVIP traffic analysis project, but he met a girl, she lived on the East Coast, and we lost him, unfortunately. Yeah. But we're happy to bring him back here to Boise for work on this project. Our overall project process, as Aaron said, we're trying to wrap this up by mid-24. So we started our project last month with meeting with that interagency advisory team that Aaron alluded to. We've been heavy into data collection. We were able to pull traffic counts in just before that section of State Street closed for construction. So we're working through gathering those, processing that data, gathering various other information, crash, parking, information like that, and assessing existing conditions. We're planning to go out to the public as well as to area stakeholders at the end of this month and into early October. So that includes, as Aaron alluded to, meetings with the development occurring along the corridor. So we have a specific meeting set up with the YMCA development team, as well as other property owners along the corridor. And invitations for this outreach are going out here in the near future, in addition to the stakeholder meetings which are already set up. Following this outreach and this initial analysis of existing and projected future conditions, we'll begin work on developing initial alternatives at a high level. We'll be reviewing those with that interagency advisory team in December. And then we'll be coming back to you all, as well as Boise City Council and the VRT board in the new year to discuss what we're seeing in those initial alternatives, the direction that IAT is seeing for what should go out to the public for review. We'll do further assessment of those alternatives, going into some detailed traffic operations and other analyses in the early part of 24, taking that back to the IAT in March of 24, getting some final direction and refinement from them. We'll be coming back to you all probably then in April, May, to provide an update on how that analysis looks before we go out to the public and stakeholders again in May. Expect that outreach to wrap up in the spring, at which point we plan to use the feedback as well as the technical analysis to select a preferred alternative with the IAT in June. We'll be back again with you all, plus City Council and the VRT board at that time for final input and feedback. And then the goal is to have adoption happen in July of next year to keep things humming along there. So as far as our immediate next steps goes, you know, like I said, we're into our existing future conditions analysis, going out for outreach here. the end of the month, and then using that feedback plus the technical analysis to develop those initial concepts with the intent to be back in front of you all in the new year. And with that, I think we can take any questions you might have.
Yes, Madam President.
Mr. Goldthorpe.
Just recently, and this is talking about the future, just this past week, I've read at least one, maybe two articles that were in the media that were talking about the folks on the south side of State Street that the YMCA is relying so heavily on as backing away from their deals. So I would really appreciate, before we have to make any firm decisions, that we see firm commitments from those folks.
Yes. Yeah, Commissioner Pickering, Commissioner Goldthorpe, yes, we plan to meet with that group here in a couple weeks. I've seen the articles on Boise Dev too. And, yeah, we're interested to learn more about what the final conclusion is from the current discussions they're having with the CCDC staff and board about changes to their development agreement.
Thanks a lot.
Nick, could you expand a little bit around what type of data collection analysis are you doing currently in this stage that we're in?
Yes, President Pickering, we have collected traffic counts at all the intersections along this section of State Street. So we're currently working on getting those prepared for traffic operations analysis, the kind that you're probably used to seeing. Plus, we're also doing a simulation of the corridor. So we'll be building that. We're building that model right now. It takes some time, inputting all the traffic signal data into that, as well as the multimodal traffic volume data. We've collected parking utilization data on weekdays. We've been holding off on weekend parking utilization counts until after Labor Day for when churches are seeing their higher levels of attendance. We're looking at bicycle pedestrian level of traffic stress, as well as crash data from ITD.
Thanks, Nick.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney.
Yes, I have some questions, and they may not necessarily be for you, but more for staff. We're looking here at State Street from 8th to 14th. This was all part of, was it not, the previous project that was already bid for State Street? So we have a section here, and we're going back to the drawing board. Is that what's happening here?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, for the record, Justin Lucas, Deputy Director of Planning and Projects here at the Highway District. Commissioners, yes, this project at the Commission's direction was broken into 3 different pieces. 2 of those pieces are moving forward. This is the 3rd piece where the Commission has asked us to do a deeper dive and consider a redesign. But yes, this was part of that overall big bid package that the Commission rejected several months ago.
So how many more millions of dollars are we going to spend to redo something that's already been done?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I don't have a number right now off the top of my head. We do have this contract with Kittleson, which is several $100,000 to go through this process, and there will be a design cost associated with any type of redesign that is required as an outcome of this process. So you're in the certainly well above 6 figures in the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollar range. But it really depends ultimately, commissioners, on the direction we receive.
Okay, so we're going to spend hundreds of thousands more on concept planning, and then we're likely to spend hundreds of thousands more on redesign of parts of it. And then we have to go back to bid again, and there's every chance that the bids are going to come in higher. We're going to end up spending millions of dollars, and I don't fault you for this. I fault the Commission for taking a project that was ready to go and saying, stop, gosh, let's start over. And the reasons were trivial concerns, quibbling about, a lane here, a crosswalk there. I really think it reflects badly on this Commission to, now we're spending good money to do something over again that was already done. And maybe there will be improvements, maybe there won't be. That remains to be seen, but I have to admit, this is really, I think, unfortunate. And I'm not casting aspersions on Kittleson or anyone else involved in this. This is a big mistake, a costly mistake on the part of this commission to start redoing something that's already been done.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gold.
I appreciate the presentation. I think that it is really great and comprehensive, and I appreciate all the information that that is going to be collected to help better inform what what can and should go in this stretch of road. I think it was pretty clear to the majority of the commission that this change was necessitated, and so I appreciate the presentation today. I think that it's really great to have all the interagency team together working closely on this, and the multiple presentations to the different agencies over time. I think it's going to be really helpful. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, do you mind, Ken, bringing up the timeline slide? Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to staff. Thanks, Nick. I really do appreciate this timeline. The only thing is, I would like to make sure that the July timeline, it's early July, so we're not getting caught up in our budget process. So I see a slight head nod, but I just kind of want to get like a soft confirmation that we can kind of shoot for that early. I mean, granted, there's 4th of July, but earlier-ish July would be better for a target final concept. Is that all right?
President Pickering, yes, we will consider the budget schedule and the adoption timeline. We'll work with staff on that.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, staff. Yeah, I also just want to say, adding on to Commissioner Gold's point, the thing that missed the boat on the last process was there wasn't a lot of, collaboratory analysis or concept development with this length of the corridor, as really was needed and required of this type of complex road. And so I'm really, although this is going to take a little bit of time, I'm really confident that we're going to get it right, and having the time to involve these partners in this early concept. So we're all looking at the same data. We're all part of each of these steps. We're going to arrive at a really good couple of concepts, right, that we can look at, and we've got that buy-in. We are all understanding. Anyway, my point is, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm really confident with what you guys have outlined here that we're going to get it right. And I'm excited to see what you guys come up with.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks, staff. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Item number 3, Amity Road to Locust Grove Road. It's an ACHD project presentation. Mr. Clark.
Good afternoon, Commission. For the record, Styles Clark, Project Manager. I plan on sharing with you an update of the Amity Locust Grove intersection. This has been a difficult project to try and navigate through with a lot of moving parts. Last February, we shared the feedback we received from the last public involvement process, and since then, we've received a couple letters from the City of Meridian voicing their concerns. Following this work session, we will be preparing exhibits to take back out to the public to hear how they would prefer to see this project proceed. We won't be making any decisions today on the future of this project. I'm just sharing with you the concerns from the public and the options that we've come up with to help address this area. We will be back in front of you with a summary of the public involvement at the public hearing on November 15th. And at that time, we will be looking for direction on how this project will proceed.
Madam President, If I might, that November 15th meeting, is that the one that we promised the neighbors?
That would be the public hearing, but we are also looking at scheduling, in communication with the LDS Church through the public involvement process, doing an open house as well.
No, that's not what we asked for before. We asked for something that the public could attend here with the commission. So an open house isn't gonna fit.
Public hearing on the 15th would be where the public can come and talk to the
I understand that. I've been in more than one of them. But what we promised the public was a time that they could come to us in a public setting, and that doesn't mean a Zoom open house, to give their concerns, their kudos, their whatevers. And it doesn't sound to me like we're keeping our promise very well there.
Madam President, members of the commission, thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe, for this clarification. So on November 15th, the intention of staff was to bring the alternatives, the full public process and public involvement that we have received up to this point in front of the commission, to receive public testimony in front of the commission in this room and allow the commission to hear all of that and then provide the final direction through a vote to staff on how to move forward. So that is the intention for November 15th. And I hope that answers your concern, Commissioner.
Doesn't.
Okay, I guess were you expecting it sooner than that, sir? Or,
No, not at all. I was not expecting the final hearing, which you're describing right now, until after we have had a formal opportunity to visit with the neighbors, and not just on Zoom and not just on a remote type open house, because that just does not cut what you and I both know this neighborhood and these people that we've all discussed this with expect.
So, Madam President, members of the commission, we can certainly hold during the public involvement process that we have scheduled. We'd usually do an online open house and a survey to gather all of that information. If the commission has an intention of holding some sort of meeting to listen to the public, we were planning to do it as an open house at a location near the intersection where the commission could potentially attend and listen to that. If the commission's intention is to hold that here, I'm certain we could accommodate that.
I can help facilitate that with the people who I know are most concerned about all of this, whether it be here or at Mary Mac School or the LDS Church there at the intersection. I'll be happy to get involved.
And Commissioner Goldthorpe will work with you on that and other members of the commission. It is our intention to have an in-person meeting. We're going to have our public open house period, which is a couple weeks where you have all the online stuff. But during that period, we were absolutely intending to have an in-person meeting where the public could come and discuss their concerns directly with staff and any member of the commission who so chose to be there. If the commission has a quorum there, we would have to highlight that meeting as a quorum of the commission. But our intention for that meeting was a listening session to listen to the concerns of the public, but take no action until November 15th.
Okay, well, I would go ahead and notice that up, because I would hope that the entire commission would be there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So this intersection currently operates today as an always stop controlled intersection with an overhead flashing beacon. Both of these roadways are classified as minor arterials with one travel lane in each direction. Per our master street map, Amity is planned to be a roundabout corridor from 10 Mile Road to Maple Grove, excluding the Meridian Road intersection. One thing to note is we have just recently constructed a roundabout 1 mile to the north of this section at Victory Locust Grove, and there is an existing multi-lane roundabout 1 mile to the south at Lake Hazel Locust Grove. So when this project first began in FY21, the goal was to design an interim signal to help increase the flow of traffic and safety versus the current always stop. Once the team began designing the interim intersection, we realized the level of impacts to the right-of-way, irrigation, and utilities in this area. It was decided at that time that a traffic analysis was needed to evaluate this intersection and the future growth as opposed to an interim option. In the traffic analysis, we evaluated a multi-lane roundabout, a dual-lane roundabout, and a 6x4 signal. Through the analysis process, the multi-lane roundabout was selected because of many safety aspects that I'll dive into in later slides. This intersection is on the south edge of Meridian, with nearly everything to its north already developed. And it's kind of in between this urban and rural area. In the image on the right, you can see almost line through the map that I've highlighted in red, showing the current, the edge of the current development and the rural parts of South Meridian. This map also helps show how Amity Road is planned to be a roundabout corridor from Maple Grove to 10 Mile. As mentioned on the previous slide, there is also a roundabout to the north and to the south of this intersection. The roundabout at Lake Hazel to the south was designed and constructed by the developer Brighton to accommodate their development. And that yellow arrow is pointing to the Lake Hazel Locust Grove intersection. So the image on the left is the Brighton development that is expected to build over 1,000 homes. This map just helps show just how large this one development will be in this area. Because of the back and forth on this project leading to delays and coordinating surrounding construction projects, we have construction currently scheduled for beyond FY28. So this project is not happening tomorrow or even next year. So unless otherwise directed, this intersection will operate as it does today for potentially the next 5 years or more. In February of FY21, this project was kicked off as an interim 3x3 signal, and shortly after, we began the traffic analysis. In FY22, based off the team's review of the analysis, we began design of the multi-lane roundabout. Last February, we took the current 50% design out to the public for feedback, and it was at that time that we received the first letter from the City of Meridian requesting that we reevaluate this intersection as an interim signal and reconsider widening Locust Grove to 5 lanes to the north, as well as improve the connection from the intersection to the elementary school. Last April, we presented the feedback back to you, the commission, and in July, we received the second letter from the City of Meridian requesting to reevaluate an interim signal and to hold design until more development moves into the area. I printed both of those letters out for your reference. So in the public involvement process last February, the public identified 3 main areas of concern. The first was they would prefer to see a signalized intersection opposed to a multi-lane roundabout. The second concern was the right-of-way impacts and that the cell tower should be relocated to split the right-of-way impacts evenly among adjacent property owners. The third concern was that we need to accommodate better connectivity from the intersection to Mary McPherson, which is just west of this intersection. So commissioners, depending on how this project moves forward, there will be trade-offs on addressing each of these concerns. For example, there will be larger right-of-way impacts if we are to address, improve the connectivity to the school. So here are 2 images of the signal and the roundabout that we've evaluated in the analysis. The image on the left is the 6x4 signal, and the image on the right is the multi-lane roundabout. Some things to note here is that the homes on the northeast and west leg of the intersection are very close to the right-of-way, regardless of which design is selected. And you can see on the northeast corner of both images a red box, and that is outlining the cell tower's current location. And the goal was to retain the cell tower's current location because of very large right-of-way purchase and relocation costs. So one aspect that we took into consideration when evaluating both intersection types was the approach speeds and the visibility coming from the west on Amity as well as the south on Locust Grove. Both of these approaches are on top of a hill looking down towards the intersection. A signal constructed at this intersection is a safety concern due to vehicles traveling on downhill grades as they approach the intersection. A signal would not be visible to drivers until they are already driving down either hill. In this area of Meridian, we do see a lot of heavy truck traffic using both of these roadways, and those vehicles do need larger stopping distances, especially when traveling down hills. The roadway speeds at this current location range from 40 to 45 miles an hour and 50 miles an hour once you get on top of the hill on Amity. Comparing this design back to the roundabouts have been proven to force vehicles to reduce their speeds as they approach the intersection, as well as significantly reduce the percentage of serious crashes because of the approach angles. Staff is recommending that if we are going to expand this intersection, that it should be a roundabout. This slide shows the right-of-way impacts between a 6x4 signal and the multi-lane roundabout. The red area is the required right-of-way for the 6x4 signal, and the white hatching is the required right-of-way for the multi-lane roundabout. The red and white hatching is the required right-of-way for both intersection types. You can see in this display that the roundabout actually takes up less area than the 6x4 signal.
Madam President?
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, how far from Nadine Mott's front door until the road begins in the roundabout scenario and the signal scenario, do you know?
So the roundabout I know was roughly 30 feet. The signal would be closer.
That's from the 30 feet from her door until the road?
From her house to the edge of the right-of-way.
Okay, so the edge of the right-of-way, there's probably, what, 12 feet before the asphalt?
We plan for 2 feet of utilities, a 10-foot multi-use pathway, a 5-foot buffer, and then the travel lane.
Okay, so then from the edge of the right-of-way to her house would be very close.
So it would be from the house to the edge of the right-of-way would be roughly 30 feet. And then
Can I just ask, can I clarify, which house are we talking about?
The first on the northwest quadrant, the first house to the north, and there's another one. They're
Is that the sort of the bluish looking roof?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the gray one above it.
My next slide is a little closer.
And that shows with both. And to tell you the truth, personally, I see no reason why we shouldn't design in more right-of-way acquisition on the east side. And I know about the additional costs.
Okay, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, thank you.
If I may, Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney.
So Commissioner Goldthorpe, you are suggesting to shift the entire project to the east, and it seems like that would then impact the cell tower and then necessitate probably the moving of that cell tower with whatever huge cost that involves. Is that what you're saying?
It's not a huge cost. I mean, we've been given a lot of figures and have no idea what the actual one would be. The last one I heard was close to $1 million.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I do kind of address this in this slide here.
Okay.
Madam President, members of the commission, and Stiles stated this, but I think it's worth restating, that up to this point, all of the design assumptions and the potential options that we plan to take out to the public assume that we do not impact the cell tower. And I just want to make that very clear to the commission, and there's reasons for that. One of them is cost. The second one is there's a lot of unknowns, as Commissioner Goldthorpe just stated, related to the removal and relocation of a cell tower, that if indeed we choose a design option that goes in that direction, we would likely need to have a deeper discussion with the commission about all of the possible implications of that. And so the reason I'm trying to be so clear on this is when we go back out to the public, we are going to show them options, but all of those options include retention of the cell tower. Now, if through that public process, members of the public or the commission, as you get more information, you decide to have us go in a different direction, we can just deal with it at that time. But I just wanted to be clear where we're at today.
Justin, thank you very much. I think we ought to get ahead of the curve because you and I have seen and heard all of the communications from the public. And almost without exception, they want that cell tower moved. So they won't be, upset if you show them any options that include that. Promise.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe. No, I'm with you, and I know there are a handful of property owners that have weighed in specifically on that topic at this point.
And they do represent a lot of others, that I can promise you as well.
And that's very fair. I guess what I'm trying to get at is we would like to get that kind of clarification from the commission to see how to move forward with those designs, because none of the current designs are anticipating the cell tower removal.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, what I'd like to recommend then is that if this is the will of the commission, I would like to have an executive session to sit down and specifically discuss those issues on that cell tower with the commission. It has to do with dollars and cents, best done in executive session.
Okay, I would, however, point out to those from the neighborhood who are watching this at this moment, what you have just heard from the director is actually a good step.
Okay. The final primary concern from the public was that we needed to address better connectivity to Mary McPherson Elementary School. We just learned recently that the Simplot parcel to the north of the school there has agreed to work with the school to help address this connectivity issue.
That's a huge deal. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's really good stuff. So Simplot has agreed to allow a pathway across their field for connection to the Reflection Ridge neighborhood there, highlighted with the green line. As mentioned before, we have included an attached asphalt pathway and extruded curb extending from the roundabout to the elementary school on the north side of Amity with our current design. But if requested, we can work on modifying the current design to help address a safer connection as well.
No, those both are really good add-ons to what we heard earlier in the year. Trust me. And just so you know, the school will build a safety fence along that pathway, because as I'm sure you can imagine, having the kids crossing in an open field is probably not nearly as safe as it would be to keep other people out of there.
Absolutely. So here's an image showing the Amity Road, being widened from 2 lanes to its ultimate 5 lanes in order to address both the center turn lane and pedestrian connectivity to this intersection. Amity Road would need to be widened to its ultimate 5-lane cross section with multi-use pathways on both sides of Amity. On both sides of Amity. This exhibit helps show just how far we would need to widen Amity in order to address both of these concerns. The elementary school sits close to the mid-mile mark between Meridian Road and Locust Grove. I've highlighted the school there in red just to make things easy. If we are going to consider reconstructing this segment and impacting this area for roughly a year during construction, we need to consider expanding this roadway to its ultimate in order to only impact this area once. Per our master street map, this section of Amity is planned to be 5 lanes from McDermott to Eagle Road. In order to address both of the public's concerns of connectivity to the school and adding a center turn lane, staff is considering widening Amity Road to its ultimate 5-lane cross section.
One question, Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, I believe we've had discussion before about including Amity as a 3-lane corridor from at least Locust Grove East.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, as far as I know, the master street map
Yes.
still shows Amity as 5 lanes, and that's what we've based off so far.
Okay, I understand. But there should be some memory here in the room about the other conversations, and I know that if the commission decides to, in completing that corridor to 3 lanes, then the master street map would have to be changed.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Goldthorpe, if Amity Road is reduced to three lanes, we can definitely.
And not without precedent, based on what we just did with Beacon Light. You know, we got an industrial section going for a mile or whatever, and then it drops from 5 to 3 lanes.
Okay.
I appreciate Commissioner Goldthorpe's comments here. Styles, I'm really concerned just with like the statement that you put on here. Widening to 5 lanes should be considered for full connectivity for the go in once piece without, and you haven't publicly made any, recognition that this is an elementary school and that speed wins and kids lose. So I think this might be putting the cart before the horse, and I'm really concerned about this, and I would agree with Commissioner Goldthorpe. I think we would need a work session on this, to be honest with you, to go a little bit deeper and like what are the options, and does this truly need to be a 5-lane section right here, and have a little bit more data and nuanced discussion rather than just this idea that going in once is a sufficient amount of reasoning for it to be 5 lanes.
Madam President, may I have a second?
Sure.
Thank you. Madam President, Commissioners, Commissioner Pickering is on target. We are already scheduling a work session for all of you on the master street map regarding several road sections to get your guidance on as we move forward. Based on the discussion and the great questions that have been asked, I'm wondering if it would be prudent for us potentially to pause this work session at this point and then give the staff some time to look at some of the issues that you've raised and then come back to you with maybe some more answers or some other options going forward. Because again, as Commissioner Goldthorpe has suggested and Commissioner Pickering has, we do have scheduled sessions to talk just about these sort of things. So not wanting to impact the public outreach programs and such that the staff has worked through. But I'm wondering if we should pause at this point in time and come back to you soon with a continuation or at least some updates to the issues that you raised so far.
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yep, pausing would be fine with me. I would, however, if we do, make one last request, and that is that as we go through the description and the pictures and the illustrations, the explanations of what happens with roundabouts, that we have more information about the safety aspects of pedestrians crossing this design of roundabout. Because for some reason, there's a lot of folks out there that think it's just a death trap, and we know that's not the case, but we need to sell that better with statistics.
Again, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, absolutely, and again, probably another, just an example of why we're requesting a strategic pause on this to continue to flush this out.
Well, good news is we don't have a
Director,
construction
Director,
date.
oh, sorry, what did you say, Kent?
What was that?
What did you say?
I didn't hear you, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Well, I said, well, the good news with all this, as far as pause and everything else is, there isn't a date for construction. So, or estimation. So just doing it as slow as it takes is absolutely fine with me.
So that's my question is, Director, what's the, we talked a lot about the roundabout. I thought that was, I'm happy we're looking at this entire segment, but can these be separate conversations? I guess I was a little, or do we need to talk about the roundabout and this section of Amity in one full breath? I guess, is that a question for staff or Commissioner Goldthorpe? I could say either or, I guess.
Well, Madam President, members of the commission, once again, this is Justin. Based on what the director has just stated and the feedback we're hearing, we do have some upcoming work sessions to talk about various different road segments and their current status in the master street map. We can add Amity Road to that discussion and kind of roll it into these other discussions. And if we do decide to do that and we take this strategic pause, which staff is totally supportive of, I do want to be clear that I don't think at that point we should be going out to the public then, or we should be having any type of further engagement with the public, because until we kind of land on where exactly we want to go. And that's fine. And I just know there's been different expectations about how fast we go to the public. And if we want to do that very quickly, we kind of have to, make some of those decisions. But I agree, there's a lot of moving parts here, and there's different work sessions and different conversations that all impact this single project. And I'd like for those to play out before we were to re-engage the public.
Madam President, I think Justin's description of what he'd like to see happen is perfect, because again, I don't have a mouse, so I don't know how many people are on this. But if nothing else, these kinds of exercises show the public just how much time, consideration, and care to get it right that we as an organization actually do. And that, I think, is priceless.
Well, I want to make sure, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that you're okay with, again, like Justin said, we would have to take this pause, which means we wouldn't have that public, open house, those meetings with those constituents in that way.
Well, we would not have to have it on that date. We can put everything off.
Right.
We can put our final hearing off till the first part of the year, for that matter. So, yeah, I'm fine with it.
I just want to make sure you're okay with that. That's all.
Madam President.
Commissioner Gold.
Yeah, and I would just like to make sure that we're including the director's recommended executive session in that flushing out of information as well.
Absolutely.
And that is staff's intention as we go forward. That the cell tower discussion, I do believe, requires a very specific conversation with the commission, and we plan to do that. And Commissioner Goldthorpe, I think sometime in the new year is a reasonable time frame as we work through these various different conversations and work sessions. And as we get input from the public, we will keep them informed that the commission's asked us to take a deeper dive on this. There's going to be a pause, and as Stiles stated, the intersection will continue to operate today, just like it does. So
trust me, 5 minutes after this meeting is over, they will know.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, Stiles, thanks for hanging in there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Stiles. All right, and I believe that is the end of our post-commission agenda. So thanks for bearing with us, and we'll see you next week.